My name is Solar. Today, I am being led to talk about karmic relationships, twin flame relationships, and the such, or toxic relationships. Maybe not even toxic. It doesn't have to be toxic. So, I am gonna be sharing how I was able to successfully release. Let me close this window. So today I'm getting into how I was able to release relationships that weren't conducive to my growth. And really, the first thing that I had to do was take responsibility for magnetizing the dynamics of that relationship, of these relationships. And so once you take ownership of the things that you are attracting, then you give yourself power. Okay? So first thing that I had to do was that. And it was actually the last thing that I did after I recognized all the other steps. After I took all the other steps, like the last thing was recognition, but that has to be the first thing. For me, I feel like that it would have just made everything so much easier. So my first tip, stretching, okay? Stretching, because sometimes we don't even know what consciously is how we are. Sometimes we don't know how we are attracting things consciously. Like it could be from our subconscious, and most of the time it is, so we aren't aware. Regardless though, everything is held within the body. So our hips hold on to so much emotional baggage. And I realized that once I started doing yin yoga, changed my life. One, because I didn't have to do I didn't have to search much for the emotion. It was just there once I started stretching. Like I didn't need to figure out what it is that I needed to release. My body just automatically knew how to release. So stretches like the butterfly pose, the butterfly stretch, frog, which is when you lift your legs both ways like this and you're laying down. Just bring your knees up into your armpits, and you hold the top of your toes like such, and just holding that pose. Amazing. That pose is amazing for releasing just toxic waste and emotional baggage that we hold in this area. Any other type of stretching, any kind of hip stretch, you'll find what it is. You'll find, and you breathe deep into your poses, and you do this continuously. Second thing that I'm gonna get into is journaling. Journaling is so important, and not just like mindless, even though that also is helpful to just release through words and writing. But I found that what helped me was writing the pros and cons of the person and the relationship. And that helped me to recognize, what is it that I like? What is it that I don't like? Because most of the time we go into these relationships and we don't even know what we want, and we don't know what we like. We don't know ourselves. So I feel like if you change your perspective and say, okay, this relationship happened because there were some core patterns that I had within myself that needed adjusting, or I needed to see them. And in order for me to see them, it had to be played out in a relationship. Now, what were the pros? What were the cons of the relationships? And also, what was the other thing I wrote? Writing letters to God. So writing the pros and the cons of the relationship. Take a sip. Journaling and taking it a step further, writing letters to God helped me tremendously. Like, I used to just write to God and be like, this is what's going on right now, and have the intention of having it be a communicative line straight to God. Maybe you can do this through art, painting, or drawing. Maybe you do this through just talking out loud. For me, who's calling? I'm in the middle of something. And like, why is it still going? Shout out my project, which is out everywhere. If you would like to listen to my music, I was writing in these letters my pain, how painful things were, how I didn't want to experience these things, how I wanted so much to release this person, and what could I have done better, and what am I going to do in the future to be better, and how I am now dedicating to myself in a way that I wished for others to dedicate to me. So I learned that when you invest so much in a person, in anything, when you invest so much in anything, it's harder to release just because you've put so much of your energy already in this thing, and you want it to grow. Which is why I believe people have such a hard time letting go of toxic patterns, because sometimes we think, or of toxic relationships, and they don't even have to be toxic, of relationships that are not healthy for us, or just not aligned for us. Maybe the person doesn't have the same intentions. So it's so important to first speak about what the intentions are in the relationship. That way you know where you stand, and that way you also can focus on what it is that you want. If you don't have the same intentions as the person that you are with, don't try to convince this person by like acts of kindness or however you see. Like, you cannot manipulate a situation. And sometimes it's not even about manipulating, but about trying to help someone as well. Just, there's so many factors. And I wish to speak in cohesion. So I don't want to go off into tangents. Just make sure that you are investing your energy into something and someone that has the same intentions as you. That was one thing that I learned. So writing down all these things in my letters to God, how I'm cutting off everything that I feel doesn't feel aligned, people who don't actually love me, people who don't adore me like I adore me. And then how I am going to use all this information from these failed relationships, right? How I'm going to use this information and embody my growth and integrate these lessons in a way that my next relationship will look different, because it'll start off different because I'm already a different person. So you're going to take your letters to God and you're going to burn them. Yes. Make sure that you are burning them in the right environment. Please. And let this be a ritual. Maybe you want to rip them up and throw them somewhere. That was also something that I did. I also ripped them up or like soaked them underwater. You have to get rid of the letters in the best way that you know how. You have to get rid of the letters. I chose to burn them or rip them and throw them out a window. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't. I guess something that's like also helpful for the environment. I don't know. But let this be a ritual, basically. A ritual of release. So the last thing that I'm going to share, the last tip that I'm going to share is setting and respecting your boundaries and the boundaries of others. Setting your boundaries and respecting them. So if you decide that certain relationships aren't right for you anymore, then you're not going to partake in these type of relationships regardless of the circumstance. That's what respecting your boundaries look like. Regardless of how many times they hit you up or how many times you feel lonely and like you are wanting to be in the company of others, respect your boundaries. That way, when the right thing shows up, you are more just like wholly grateful and ready because you didn't settle. So respecting your boundaries looks like not settling regardless of what the situation is. So that's what I'm going to say. Also, respecting others' boundaries looks like if a person isn't clear with their intentions, or if a person lets you know their intentions and they don't correlate with yours, respecting their boundaries looks like not manipulating that. Accepting things as they are. And I also believe that respecting people's boundaries looks like it doesn't matter what potential you see in a person. Sometimes if they don't see that potential within themselves, you have to respect that boundary. A lot of us have the sight and all the extra sensory gifts, and respecting people's boundaries looks like not pushing people into what you see that they can be, or into what you hear. Like sometimes we can just tap into people and see things before they see it. Respect that boundary. That's the last thing I want to say. So I hope that you enjoyed and take into consideration a few of these tips. Let me know how that goes for you, okay? Toodles.